meeting. We're coming out of recess to resume. And to get us started, we're just going to go to our attorney, Brooke Bissonnette, for just a brief word, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. As the board has received a confidential memo outlining what the options are at this point after talking to counsel for Mr. Gibbs, there are several options that the board can take at this point. And at this point, if there are any questions you can ask, but at this time, anything that would be discussed would not be privileged under the attorney-client privilege. So.
Okay. So to continue us forward in this meeting, I'm going to make a motion. If it gets a second, then we'll have any discussion that's desired and go from there. So I move to terminate Mr. Gibbs' contract for cause because the board has determined that Mr. Gibbs, in connection with the performance of his duties under the employment agreement, has been dishonest, committed gross misconduct, and/or committed willful malfeasance. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and support. Do we have any discussion? Commissioner Bonema.
I just wanted to state for the record that Mr. Gibbs was invited to be here tonight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you hear any response from him on whether he intended to be here or not?
We'll have Mr. Bissonnette respond.
Would you like me to answer?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we informed his attorney that we would be having this meeting tonight. He responded to my email and said, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Curran.
Thank you. Has there been any desire from Mr. Gibbs and his attorney to possibly pursue the mediation route?
That could be an option. It's not the current motion on the table, but if you would like, you could.
Well, I mean, if you're motioning to just move forward with that, I mean, we should be at least discussing other options as well.
Oh, yes.
That can be part of the discussion.
Yep. You could absolutely add anything to this discussion that you would want.
Yep. That's why I'm adding it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what the question was. Has there been any desire from Mr. Gibbs or his attorney to move forward with a potential mediation versus just going this route? Or are there other routes available?
Counsel, you want to add any comment on that?
We did get indication from Mr. Gibbs' attorney that he would be open to mediating this dispute or this this matter at this point. So mediation is always an option, even up to the time of a trial and potentially even after a trial. There's always mediation as an option. And mediation is always voluntary.
Commissioner Zylstra.
Yeah, Brooke, just a quick question on mediation. What would mediation look like? Like a mediation of the charges and accusations and some of the accusations that, Mr. Gibbs has placed in front of us from his part? Or would it simply be about financial terms?
That's a good question. Typically, so with mediation, both parties agree upon a mediator, which is typically an attorney. Sometimes it cannot be an attorney, but we'd look to find an attorney that would be willing to mediate it. You pay the attorney an hourly rate to review documents and review information to determine ways that the mediator can help the parties come together and resolve the dispute. And in a mediation, my recommendation would always be to litigate, or not litigate, but mediate and resolve all of your issues. So if you're going to go to mediation, try to get a global resolution. If that's having Mr. Gibbs come back and there's terms to have him come back and make sure that it's a working environment that's good for all, then that's one thing. If it's a separation, what are the terms of that separation? So kind of what just happened in the Hambley matter. There was a mediation and that resolved pretty much most of the issues except for the attorney fee issues that will go in front of a judge. So it really gives the parties the power to craft their own resolution as opposed to an arbitration, which will make a decision.
So mediation in this sense would allow us to kind of take a step back and then that, I know the motion on the table is to terminate, but it would allow us to take a step back and decide if that's really the direction we want to go, or we want to continue with Mr. Gibbs' employment going forward, right? Those are the remain options on the table in a mediation. We're not just mediating
Correct.
financial terms of his.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Mediation could come to a resolution that he's back in his position and working, and that could be a result of mediation.
Okay.
Anybody? Yeah, Commissioner Curran.
Thank you. When it comes to mediation versus the potential termination and going into arbitration, what are the timelines and the costs associated with those two different options?
With mediation, it may take a couple months to
Mhm.
have a good mediator available. The best mediators on the west side of the state here are booked 2 to 3 months out. But they're also typically the arbitrators too. And arbitration can take 6 months to a year because there is a discovery process that happens the same way that happens in court. So there's an exchange of information between the parties. There's potential motions to dismiss. There's a lot of things that happen in circuit court that can happen during arbitration. So mediation would get it done quicker, but you're going to have a lag of time where there's going to be some uncertainty.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand correctly, time-wise, it sounds like mediation will cut the time at least in half, if not more. And then what about financially?
So the less time a case takes, the less attorney fees it is.
Mhm.
So that's a benefit. The mediators charge about the same on an hourly basis as an arbitrator would charge. The mediator is probably not going to spend as much time on a case as an arbitrator. So
Well, we have to pay for discovery too, right?
yeah,
So
I
that
mean,
takes-
the attorney fees in that would get
Yeah.
high. And I
Okay.
mean, I do think that there is definite advantages if there is looking to have resolution to reduce attorney fees by trying to find a way to resolve it.
Mhm. Okay,
Another consideration would also be the financial cost of having an employee on paid leave as well, right?
Absolutely.
do they stay?
Yeah, that was my question. I think you were probably gonna ask the same question as
Okay.
I was,
Go ahead.
as to the status, generally speaking, the status of the employee during that time frame.
I think that's something would have to be agreed upon between, an initial agreement outside of mediation between the employee and the county to determine what the status of Mr. Gibbs's employment will be.
So we could reinstate him in the lapse and until the mediation.
That's a possibility, and
Okay.
he may be okay with paid leave during the time too,
Okay.
in order to get a resolution.
But could we also choose to terminate employment and go to mediation as well?
If the employment is terminated,
Mhm.
mediation is always an option, but both sides have to agree to it. And there hasn't been, I don't have an indication from the other attorney yet, whether if Mr. Gibbs's employment was terminated, if they would be open to mediation. We haven't went down that road because a decision hasn't been made. So most of the time in a normally litigated case, the judge is going to encourage you to go to mediation and sometimes order you to go to mediation. It doesn't always happen, but that's typically part of the process in a litigation. So in an arbitration, it's still up to the parties. It's not going to be ordered, but if both sides want to, mediation can happen.
So it sounds like, from what you're telling me, we very well might end up at mediation anyways.
Yes,
It's a distinct possibility.
it's a distinct possibility.
So we could just cut to the chase.
That can happen. And now the cut to the chase still leaves you 3 months potentially till, unless you just pick any mediator out there. But if the parties have to agree upon a mediator
Yes, I
and there's
understand.
specific criteria we would like out of a mediator, some that has municipal employment experience, you know, it might take a little while to find somebody that is available.
So,
It's an option.
there's mention of a Jimmy Thomas. Is that someone you would be interested in working with potentially?
I don't know Jimmy Thomas at all.
Okay. Okay.
So I've never had a mediation with him. I've never had a case with
Okay.
him. So I'd have to do some more looking into it to see what his experience is on these matters.
Any other questions?
I mean,
And I'd suggest we move forward with the motion personally. Unless anyone else would like to amend the motion.
Yes, I would like to amend the motion to reinstate Mr. Gibbs and pursue mediation in this matter as soon as possible.
Is there support? Seeing none, then that motion dies and we have the main motion still. Is there any other discussion?
I would like to amend the motion.
Go for it.
I would like us to move forward with terminating Mr. Gibbs' employment, but pursue mediation in this matter. I don't know if that's an option or not, but that's what I would like us to do.
I don't believe you need to motion to do that. That could. Council, could you maybe just address that? I mean, if mediation is going to come up, it would likely, wouldn't it come up naturally?
Yeah, it would come up naturally and in conversation. The board could direct me on a separate motion to pursue mediation with his attorney. But again, it's up to Mr. Gibbs as to whether that's what he wants to do after a decision like that's been made.
Okay.
I think we should consider a separate motion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the motion that is in front of us right now is to terminate Mr. Gibbs' contract for cause because the board has determined that Mr. Gibbs, in connection with the performance of his duties under the employment agreement, has been dishonest, committed gross misconduct, and or committed willful malfeasance. Is there any additional comments? Or we'll go to the clerk for a roll call vote. Any questions before we vote? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
No.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
All right. So we are up to the next item on our agenda, which is consideration of an offer of resignation from Administrator Gibbs. I would say we probably, if you'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove that item and have a different consideration, we could do that.
I will make a motion that we amend the agenda and remove that item.
And did you want to replace it?
I did. I would actually like to replace it with a recommendation that we move forward into potential mediation.
Okay, is there support?
Support that.
So motion and support to amend the agenda to replace item C with discussion or consideration of mediation. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion carried. And we're in discussion now. We'll go to Commissioner Rhodey and then Commissioner Zalstra.
So just seems a little premature to me to be voting on mediation at this point when there's no litigation on the table. Like, there's been nothing that's been filed. Certainly something could come up, but we're not currently dealing with a case of some sort. So it seems premature to me.
Commissioner Zalstra.
We vote on we're open to mediation. That was basically the vote, right?
Just to have the conversation.
Adjust the item C to be a discussion on mediation.
Okay, so basically the essence of it is that we are open to mediation if that were to occur.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep. Any other comments on mediation in general? I'd be happy if, any updates that you get, council, pass along to the board.
If maybe council maybe wanted to address what Commissioner Rhodey stated in the thought of delaying mediation due to there's no current litigation, if you had any thoughts to add.
There is a dispute right now, so I don't think it would be unusual to have a mediation right now, but I understand the commissioner's point in that, if Mr. Gibbs gets another job, decides to move on, maybe it's nothing that is an issue going forward. So, I'm sure his attorney will be in contact with us, and if they're open to mediation, that'll be something we can bring back to the commission and see if you're open to it.
Thank you. Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes, and I would certainly be open to it if it comes up. So maybe so I don't mind us voting, to authorize him to move forward if it happens, but I just would want the motion or the approval to be carefully worded.
Then we'll make sure we work with council if that happens. Okay, anything else? So we'll move on to public comment.
Don't we have to address the action that?
I-
motion was made?
So we're in discussion regarding mediation. Someone like to make a
But-
motion to,
No, I don't know if we needed to vote on it, right?
I think it was just to add
just a
that.
discussion
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
about mediation, and
Okay,
from what I'm kind of hearing from the board is that if it comes up and council reaches out, he'll inform the board.
that sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay, then I did have an ad as well.
So you want a motion to
Yeah,
amend the agenda?
yes, please.
Go for it.
To add an agenda item to discuss immediate county leadership.
Is there support?
Sorry, which year is best? Motion, add an agenda item to discuss immediate county leadership. And
Immediate counter.
county leadership,
Okay.
because the action we've just taken, yes.
Support that, because we don't have an administrator right now.
We have a motion to have additional discussion, or to amend the agenda to have additional discussion on immediate county leadership with support. Any discussion? Oh, sorry. All in favor of amending the agenda to have a discussion on county leadership, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. And we'll go back to Commissioner Zalstra.
Great, thanks. I understand we've just taken an action regarding Mr. Gibbs. I understand we have a deputy. I think, I've not been on the building. I understand Ben's been doing a good job. I also think that, we're talking about a time frame that's, potentially 3 or 4 months away until we, obtain new leadership. I think it makes sense to maybe have a temporary administrator, you know, in addition to Ben. Ben is fairly brand new. So I think having somebody from staff in an acting capacity while we do the interview process makes sense to me.
I would totally agree with that. In my experience, when we have a similar situation like this, we had a staff member that stepped in that was able to take over for a period of time until we got a new administrator or a city manager at that time. So I think there's wisdom in pursuing someone that's on staff that does have a full understanding of what's going on in the county.
So it'd be my intention to take the next few days or the next week to have some discussions on this and come back possibly next week. And if not next Tuesday, then definitely the following. I don't think that there should be any long break, ideally without having an administrator in place. But also at this very moment, I don't think we're ready for that. So that's my thought.
So
Yeah.
we're going to expect you to come back with a suggestion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so.
And you'll be the first person I call to chat.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Commissioner Bonema.
On a related topic, you and I have talked over the phone about this, but it would be appropriate to go ahead and post this position as being available immediately. Is that
You're talking about a permanent administrator.
correct?
So permanent administrator would need to be posted and have a thorough search process. Yes. Yeah.
But I might add that
That,
when we did it the last time, you go through a agency that works on finding people.
yes.
We got 35 applications and we zeroed it down to 10 that we interviewed actually. So I think there's it's a process that you go through and you have someone help with that process.
Yes. And that's part of the reason why I thought you would be my first call. Yeah. We'll work with HR and corporate counsel. Yeah. Okay. Well, that concludes the business of the agenda. We still have public comment. So is there anyone in person who would like to address the board? Just a reminder, please come forward, state your name and jurisdiction. You'll have 3 minutes, and please address your comments to the chair. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Dave Barnowski. I vote in Port Sheldon Township, and I want to applaud the fact that you're going to take the long-term look for the new executive. Go to the classic route, get a true professional. No aspersions upon who you have, but go the long-term route, somebody who could actually survive this impending defeat.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Welcome.
I'm Jim Kuiper. You notice how I speak into the microphone, folks? Could you please do that? It's very difficult, particularly you soft-spoken people like Mr. Bergman.
Right. Sorry.
Just come right up to the microphone like this.
Okay,
Mr.
just like this.
Perfect.
Okay,
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you.
We got a second from the peanut gallery.
All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Welcome.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Ina Arner, Holland Township, and I'm so thrilled that I was here to observe a modern day miracle where both sides of the room were in agreement with something. So thank you, Mr. Kuiper, for causing that miracle. I know I'm supposed to address the board. I do want to encourage you to not make what please correct me if I'm remembering incorrectly. Did you originally change Mr. Gibbs's 2-year contract to a 3-year contract? Or was that just the Coleman group that you did that for?
Gibbs has 3 years.
Gibbs is 3 years?
Yeah.
To make sure that it was beyond the purview of the people with the let's not make that mistake again, okay? Let's try to learn from history. And I appreciate that you are going a better route with, you understand that this should be a professional appointment as opposed to a political one, and I applaud you for learning that.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township. Hindsight is 2020. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. Don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Draw viewpoints from a wide spectrum. Post the job. Gets fully vetted by HR. Invite public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Welcome.
Nancy Emmerich from Grand Haven. This isn't about Mr. Gibbs, but it applies. I'm reading from Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, page 98. Atticus said to Jem one day, "I'd rather you shot at tin cans in the backyard, and I know you're after birds. Shoot all the blue jays you want, if you can hit them. But remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." That was the only time I ever heard Atticus say it was a sin to do something, and I asked Miss Maudie about it. "Your father's right," she said. "Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens, don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." In Harper Lee's Macomb County, there were many mockingbirds. Tom Robinson, Jem Finch, Scout Finch, and others. In Ottawa County, Adeline Hambley is a mockingbird. Adeline's music is to care for the health of Ottawa County citizens. She's devoted to her music. Education, resources, food, doctor, dentist appointments, much, much more. Supporting Adeline is Sarah Riley Howard. For Adeline and for all of us who support Adeline, Sarah is Atticus Finch. Like Atticus, Miss Riley Howard proved that the allegations of incompetence, misconduct, and neglect of duty against Adeline were erroneous creations by members of a commission who marched to the banging drumbeat, a failed attempt to silence Adeline's music. You had voted like the jurors of Macomb County, who found Tim Robinson guilty, even though they knew he was innocent. Commissioners, Ottawa County is not Macomb County, Alabama. Thankfully, we've been awakened. We no longer will take county government for granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Sheila Detloff, Holland Township. I just want to say that in my view, how this particular meeting was conducted is how it should work. Motions were added to amend the agenda, additional discussion, broaching subjects that I don't know if you've considered or not, but gave everybody an opportunity to talk about it. I liked what I saw here, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
David Moore, Allendale Township. I heard some comments. This seemed to sound like Ms. Hamley had been exonerated and that all the accusations or issues had been resolved and that she was found to be not participating or guilty of any of them. I don't recall hearing that in mediation. Mediation brings two different sides together to try to resolve issues, to get rid of the tough edges and get some kind of a fit. That being the truth in the case, I would like to applaud Ms. Hamley and ask her to put forth her best foot to do the job she was hired to do by the previous board, even though it was under duress, I would say at the least. And hope and pray that she remembers it's with the good of the Ottawa County that she works for, not herself, not big payout. And I would tell the board the same thing. You work for the people of Ottawa County. Sometimes you gotta put a stiff upper lip. Sometimes you gotta take the breeze that blows and tries to blow you over. But just remember, what is right is always worth fighting for. And I know we can all make right decisions, or we can make wrong decisions. I would applaud if you would make more right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Is there anyone online?
Public comments online. Oh. Sorry. First is Megan Zickus. And Megan, if you could unmute yourself, state your jurisdiction, you have 3 minutes.
Hello all, Megan Zickus, Allendale Township. I would just like to offer the suggestion that when advertising for replacements, especially ones of this magnitude, that to the extent it can be posted anonymously to attract as wide of a field of candidates as possible, that it be considered. My fear is that with the national coverage of Ottawa County, it may cause people to not apply who otherwise would, or a certain sect who was only interested in contributing to more drama. And perhaps, again, to the extent they can be anonymously posted as the county administrator of X number population in the Midwest, or worded as such, that might attract a better candidate pool, because we certainly don't have time to revisit the same type of instance again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the next comment is Joe Spalding. Joe, if you just state your name, jurisdiction, you have 3 minutes.
Howdy, my name is Joe Spalding and I live in Holland Township. It's where I'm calling from. I just wanted to call in and celebrate the fact that you guys are going to go at Pete Hoekstra because he is disenfranchising the Ottawa County Republican Party. And as much as I think that the Republican Party is bad for 2 reasons for Ottawa County. One, the current board is absolutely out of their mind bonkers, and they do absolutely out of their mind bonkers things. And second, the previous board, they take a lot of flack from the Ottawa Impact flackies, but they don't ever have to answer for the fact that they didn't stop you, that they didn't see all coming, and that they didn't actively stop you. So I just. For me, I'm taking solace in the fact that right now you guys don't have any political efficacy and you have no ability to affect any change statewide, and you did it to yourselves. So, with all this infighting, I want to encourage you guys to keep it up. Go at Pete Hoekstra. I've never liked the guy. He's one of the first politicians that I knew was a homophobe, and he was driving policy directly from his hatred of gay people and nowhere else. And I also want to encourage people to listen to people when they tell you who they are the first time. These Republicans that are saying that they're not going to come for IVF, they've already pushed for bills that would ban IVF. And a little bit of good behavior in this meeting isn't going to erase whatever it was that led to a string of bad decisions over the course of the last 14 months. So the course correction starts on May 7th, and every person in Ottawa County who wants to take some accountability for their civic duty and their obligation to a functioning government needs to step up and vote on May 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next public comment is Kelsey Compagner. Kelsey, if you could unmute yourself and state your jurisdiction, you have 3 minutes.
Hi guys, Kelsey Compagner, Park Township. Can everyone hear me this time?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Good. All right. So I just wanted to take a minute. This was supposed to be in the first meeting public comment. So sorry. Just wanted to take a minute to stop and thank our commissioners, our precinct delegates, our hardworking and caring behind the scenes patriots, fighting to bring our county back to what it needs to be. I think what people need to realize at the end of the day is that our commissioners are only human. They didn't sign up for this, the hate, the bashing. At this point, we all get it. you hate the commissioners, nothing they do will ever be good enough. Let's not forget that John Gibbs was literally the most hated man just a few months ago, but now everyone seems to love him and have absolutely no question about his actions. You guys only want to attack Joe Moss and the commissioners. It's a never winning battle. And I just wanted to show my truest appreciation, especially as someone whose husband is a precinct delegate, and I see the things that it does and the way that it affects him. So let's all take a second to just remember that. I would like to point out as well that anyone who thinks they can do better should run. Get yourself out there. Try and do better. Quit just coming up and talking and acting like you know what's going on when you don't know the inner workings of these things. If you ran and maybe didn't get the votes, Joe Spalding, then maybe it's time to take a seat. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, seeing none, I'll end with a quick reference to some of the public comments. Some words a wise man once said, give peace a chance. And I'll add peace through truth. This meeting